Ladies and gentlemen, I have changed for good and have been defying gravity for quite some time. In this state of defiance, I wanted to talk about Wicked for Good because I did go and see the movie, and I have a lot of thoughts. I know there's only going to be like 10 of you watching this video, and that's okay. But if you've seen Wicked and you've seen Wicked for Good, guess what? You're getting a Jerry's Take special review on it because I want to talk about it. So I want to give a little bit of a rundown of where I am as a fan of this franchise. In a sense, I don't think I'm necessarily the target audience that this movie is going for, and I think that's abundantly clear. That being said, I have background in theater. I was the lead in a couple shows. I've always been a fan of musical theater as it is. And I didn't really discover Wicked in general until recently. Obviously, with the craze that's been going on is when a lot of this came about. But over the years, I've heard people freaking the fuck out about this show and everything. So I've always been like, what is the craze with this show? Like, it's just two witches. Like, I didn't understand it, obviously. And I kind of cringed at the fans initially before I really got a sense of what it was. Then I saw the first movie and absolutely loved it. I thought the first movie was a fantastic movie. Really gave that spirit of showmanship and fun that is Broadway and really honored that spirit. That is something that I loved about doing theater when I was growing up. So it really turned me on as a fan to the Wicked, I guess you could call it a franchise, even though it's not a franchise. That really ignited my interest in it. And then recently, like 3 weeks ago, my girlfriend and I went to see the Broadway show. And the Broadway show was fantastic. That was my exposure to Act 2 of the musical. And then just recently, yesterday, I saw Part 2. So I went first movie, that was my initial exposure. We just saw the Broadway show, and then we just watched Wicked for Good. So that's the series of events, and I took way too long to explain that, but wanted to give that background because a lot of my feelings towards Wicked for Good have to do with issues with Wicked Act 2 in the play. So off the bat, I do want to say I still loved Wicked for Good. I thought it was great. I enjoyed it almost the same amount as I did Part 1, except for some issues which we're going to get into, but those issues are mostly issues that existed with the Broadway show. So on one hand, before I get into any of this, on one hand, I think it's a fantastic thing that they kept faithful to the source material, which is the musical. I'm very glad they kept that true and didn't change anything or retcon things just for the sake of retconning them. So I like that. But that means it has all of the flaws of Act 2 of Wicked. I still loved it. After I saw the Broadway show, I left thinking that Act 2 was actually my favorite part of it. And I think that still holds true. Story-wise, and where this goes, Act 2 is fantastic. It's really fun. It's really interesting to see how they connect it to The Wizard of Oz. But even though I liked it for those reasons, there's no way around it. When you're doing this much storytelling in a musical structure where you have an Act 1 and an Act 2, and you don't have an Act 3 like most movies do, you're losing a lot of critical information that I don't even know if the book had. I genuinely don't. I've never read the books, obviously. But once Act 2 starts in the musical, it goes from Elphaba she's finally defying gravity, going against the wizard in the very beginning, to she turns into Adolf Hitler at the very end, and then just dies and fakes her death. You know what I mean? It happens so quickly that your transition from her being like, oh my God, the Oz is against the animals and all this, I'm going to show him up, to, oh, I'm going to kill Dorothy, at the snap of the finger. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Wasn't the whole thing about this a prequel? Aren't we supposed to kind of really understand what's happening here? I don't think that's an outlandish thing to say that a lot of people view as a complaint of Wicked's Act 2 in the Broadway show. But that being said, like, though that is an issue, it doesn't really matter because we're not real. Like, yes, we want that sort of stuff where it connects into the Wizard of Oz. This is in the Oz universe, and it does directly feature characters like the Tin Man. It does directly feature characters like the Scarecrow, and they're like origin stories. But then when you get them involved, and then when you see how good Elphaba is, but you watch Wizard of Oz and you know that the Wicked Witch of the West is not a good person, it just feels so wrong. Like, it doesn't feel right. It should feel right, right? Like, when you're watching this, it should be like, oh, that's why she was mean to Dorothy. But you don't really get it. Like, yes, I get it. On Vanessa Rose's on Vanessa Rose, a house fell, so Glinda gave the shoes to Dorothy, and obviously Elphaba's mad at Dorothy for that, but she should really be more mad at Glinda for that, and I know they did have a fight sequence, but it was like the quickest little thing. Those problems all maintain in the show, in the movie, I mean. And the only things they added, which is very confusing to me, they padded the runtime of this to add some new songs and some new storytelling elements, which I think were partly necessary. Like, the addition of Glinda as a kid was a necessary addition, in my opinion. I thought that was a great addition, albeit it was a little slow and they padded out the runtime. I will say the two new songs that they added into the movie were, I'm not going to call them lackluster, but they weren't anything to like some of the original pieces from the original musical. Like No Good Deed Goes Unpunished. I don't even know if that's the name of that song, but that's a fantastic song. That's another song in there. It's not as good as nothing is as good as Defying Gravity, but it's another song in there that's really strong, but then you put it next to No Place Like Home, which is one of the originals they made for this, or I'm pretty sure Glinda's song that she sings in her like apartment room, whatever you call it. They're good songs, but they don't stack up next to For Good and No One Mourns the Wicked. You know, they don't stack up, obviously. So they padded the runtime with the addition of those songs, and they padded the runtime with Glinda's backstory. And a couple other things which we're going to get into. I liked Glinda's backstory. I thought it was necessary. I like what they did. Didn't love the addition of the two songs. The one thing I really didn't like, though, that they added was these elements of Elphaba basically being like a Marvel superhero, which felt so out of place for this movie. Like, okay, obviously, I don't think that's what they were going. They weren't going for like some Marvel superhero, clearly. But like the shot of her in the beginning made me cringe so damn much when they introduced the movie and they have, I guess I don't know what animals they were, building the yellow brick road, and she comes down like literally surfing on her broomstick and like swoops in and takes people's things, and there's this big like da-da-da reveal of Elphaba. Like, that felt very cringy to me, and that kind of defeats the purpose of what the story is going for, but also in the same vein, I do get it, because you have this dichotomy of she's doing the right thing, but everyone sees it as the wrong thing. Like, I think it's a blessing and a curse that they're adopting the source material, but the curse of it is they're adopting the source material perfectly, but then adding stuff that feels so unnecessary to add when there's so much more value that could have actually been added to this story. You know what I mean? Like, do I want them to retcon the mistakes not the mistakes, but the idiosyncrasies of the Broadway show, where things go from Elphaba's just realizing that the Wizard of Oz is bad to her being like the devil so quickly? Instead of fixing those things, they add stuff that are really unnecessary. It's like a take it or leave it sort of thing that I wasn't really a big fan of, to be completely honest. But I will say that's my biggest downside, and that may seem like a big downside. It's really not, though, because I still thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, again, if Wicked Part 1 was a 9.5 out of 10, which I'd argue may be. If it was a 9.5 out of 10, this is probably an 8.5 out of 10. And I've seen a couple reviews of Wicked already, Wicked for Good. And I know that is the sentiment. Even the Critical Drinker said that. Like, I know that is the general sentiment. But it is, in my opinion, it is very true after watching it. It feels like a slight step down because it's adopting the source material that already is fundamentally flawed. But it did so in a great way. Like, again, like the No Good Deed Goes Unpunished song where she's singing about Fiyero, fantastic, probably the most memorable thing. Honestly, all of Glinda was fantastic in this episode, or in this installment. So part 1 is a big Elphaba-centric story. Part 2 is a big Glinda-centric story. And I didn't really like Glinda in the first part, and not just because you're kind of posed to not really like her in that movie, but I just found myself really enjoying the stuff with Cynthia Erivo way more than I found myself enjoying the stuff with Ariana Grande. Not because Ariana Grande did anything wrong, it's just the way they told the story. You know what I mean? It was an Elphaba-centric part. Part 2 wasn't. Part 2 was a Glinda-centric part. Now that those two parts are together, I think I'm Team Glinda on this one. I don't know. That's why I like Wicked. It has you thinking from both sides of a perspective here. That being said, obviously, the right thing to do is what Elphaba does, but I feel such sympathy for Glinda. Like, she got treated like shit by Fiyero, when Fiyero could have been very transparent with her. I will say I like the way they posed Fiero's character in this version a lot more. I think Fiyero was a lot more grounded in this version than he was in the Broadway show, where we didn't get enough time to really like sit on his emotions. Like in the beginning when Fiyero finds out that he's getting married to Glinda, which is a funny thing. When he finds that out, I love that we can breathe and actually like witness his reaction to that, which is something that we didn't really get in the Broadway show. So like little subtle moments like this, I'm glad they expanded on appropriately. But again, that still central figure of when Dorothy gets abducted by the monkeys, by the flying monkeys, and then comes in the picture, and then she starts yelling at him. Even the way it all goes down so quickly, where right after For Good, she's like, I'm going to sacrifice myself. Like, what? How did we get here? Why did we get here? I don't know. I just thought those additions were a little like goofy. It's almost like, and this is a problem with the Broadway show. It's almost like a blink and you miss it sort of thing, where it could go from one whole narrative to another so fucking quickly that it's like, what the fuck? How did we get here? How did this happen? The other thing I wanted to talk about was, I think her name is Michelle Yeoh. Let me make sure that is correct before I say that. Is it Michelle Yeoh? I'm pretty sure, no, what's her name? Madame Marble, Michelle Yeoh, yeah. Okay, Michelle Yeoh. I like her as an actress, and this is, again, I feel like I'm repeating what some people have already said about it. I like her as an actress, but she fell so flat in this movie to me that it was one of those standout things. Like, it really was. I still enjoyed her as a character, but, like, everything they gave her, I just felt like just flatlined. I don't know why. I don't know why that was the case, but it just genuinely was. Every time she was on screen, I was like, okay, where are we going with this? The only cool thing I think she did was the way she turned the tornado she created the tornado and all of that stuff that came of it, and when she started intimidating Glinda, I liked that stuff a lot, and that was, I think, her best moment in it. She definitely can't sing, that's for sure, and that's okay. She doesn't really get much singing in this movie, so it's kind of fine, but that was something that was worth noting. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, the Tin Man. Fucking loved the Tin Man. Ethan Slater does such a phenomenal job. His anger is so great, but then that comes back to the whole Act 2 dilemma. That is definitely not the same Tin Man. I've seen some TikToks recently of this. That is definitely not the same Tin Man we saw in the movie, because the Tin Man we saw in the movie is the "if I only had a heart," like the happy-go-lucky one, not the angry, just wanting to kill Elphaba at all costs one. That is not the same version, and those things are the things that I guess frustrated me about Part 2 and Act 2 of the musical. Like, okay, I get it, the musical, the Broadway one, doesn't have time, but when you're padding out the runtime for the movie, all you need to do to make it a little bit more believable to like fit into the Wizard of Oz is be like, a little scene where he's raged and he's talking to someone and he's like, you know what? But I'm going to go with Dorothy. I'm going to pretend everything's fine so we could get to Elphaba. You know what I mean? All you need is just a little moment like that to make it flow so much better. Like, he could pose as being very angry to the people that he knows, right? Like he has that whole musical number in the part where Glinda's looking down and sees him talking about how he's going to kill Elphaba. That all could play out exactly how it is. But then a moment in there and be like, but Dorothy is just a kid. I'm going to make it seem good for her. You know what I mean? That's all you got to do there. That is all you got to do. The same issues, I think, persist with the Scarecrow. For him to go from being captured to turning into a Scarecrow so quickly, and I get what they were doing with, I think it's No Good Deed Goes Unpunished, that song. I get what they were doing and what they were showing with it. I do. But, like, you could flesh that out a little bit. You could also flesh out the whole ending sequence where she gets hit with the water and all of that stuff. And are we all going to we all have to acknowledge, I didn't even know this was a meme until I watched the movie. Dude, Fiyero looked just like Ryan Reynolds. I don't even know why that's the case, but he did. He looked just like Ryan Reynolds in the ending. I thought that was fascinating. I know it's not him. I discovered, I said that in the theaters last night to my girlfriend, and she's like, you know that's all over TikTok right now? I had no idea. But I thought that was really funny, because it is true, and I guess I'm not the only one that realized it. Yeah, I'm just really rambling about my thoughts. I did really enjoy this edition. It suffered the same idiosyncrasies that the play did, that I thought giving it a 2.5-hour runtime would fix, but it didn't, and it added stuff that was, I'm not going to call it mediocre, but was average at best. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't add anything of value that I think served the Wizard of Oz story well. At this point, as a fan of Wicked, Part 1, Part 2, and the Broadway show, my thought is, if it is true, and I don't know how true this is, but I'm pretty sure the books of the Wizard of Oz are in public domain now. I don't know how it works with MGM and the rights to it and all of that stuff. I genuinely don't know. But I think the best natural step forward in this universe, or with this craze that is going on about Wicked right now, is to actually remake Wizard of Oz with the current cast. I'm talking Coleman Domingo as the Lion. I'm talking Ethan Slater as the Tin Man. I'm talking Fiero's actor, I think his name's Jonathan Bailey, as the Scarecrow. Cynthia Erivo as the Wicked Witch of the West. Glinda being Ariana Grande. Obviously, of course, Jeff Goldblum as the Wizard of Oz. If you remade the Wizard of Oz with the new context we got from Wicked now, I think that'd be a fantastic little trio of movies. And I get it. There's some people who never want to see that. There's some people who think Judy Garland's version is the best version and there can never be another Dorothy. And also because the movie is just so iconic, there can never be another Wizard of Oz. And I get that. But the two can really stand on their own, and they could recontextualize The Wizard of Oz for modern audiences with the current technical achievements, the beautiful world building and set building that Jonathan Chu did with Wicked, into a new Wizard of Oz film. I genuinely think if there's a time to do it, it's right now with this current cast, because then it can recontextualize the entire spectrum of the franchise. Do you know what I mean? Do I really want them to step on the Wizard of Oz's toes? Absolutely not. I do not want that. But if there's a time to do it while this phenomenon is insane, it's right now. And I think that would fix a lot of the issues a lot of people have. Did I really think I'd be running for almost 20 minutes talking about Wicked for good? No, I didn't. But here we are, because I genuinely enjoyed it, and I think there's a lot to talk about with it. So even though I know no one is going to watch this video, I had to yap about it. Let me know your thoughts about Wicked for good in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, like this video, all that stuff. And with all that out of the way, thank you again so much for watching this video, and until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out. Oh, and I've heard the feedback that you guys really do not like the audio that I have for this section, so I'm working on it. There's going to be a new one, but shout out to all the members who have joined this channel. It seriously helps me out a ton. Thanks so much.